All right, it's very good to see you again. Thank you so much for coming in today. We're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs draft. Specifically what I would do if I were drafting. Listen, I don't claim to be a draft expert. I don't look at a whole lot of film on guys. I enjoy it, but I don't spend a whole lot of time doing it. What times I have tested myself over the past decade, I do okay with the first 40 picks of the draft. It's not that difficult necessarily to try to pick out a guy that you think can play. Even the guys in the NFL, the executives and the general managers who have shown that they have some kind of a touch at it over the years, have a lot of swings and misses. They have drafts in which they are incredibly awesome, followed up very quickly by a draft that's almost a complete throwaway draft. So there's a lot of luck involved. When you look at the statistics involved in the first round, you've got about a coin flip chance, 50%, almost 50% likely to get a starter who's going to make it past his rookie contract, hang around for another 3, 4, 5 seasons after that, actually make an All-Pro or a couple of Pro Bowls possibly. You're about 50% in the first round. By the time you get down to the second round, you're looking at anywhere from 16 to 20%, depending on the season. Your likelihood of being able to actually get a guy who's going to stick around for a while and make a contribution. By the time you get down to the third round, that percentage drops all the way, and this is across the board, all NFL teams. That percentage drops down to about 10, 12%, somewhere right in there, depending on the latest draft. By the time you get down to the fourth round, you are incredibly unlikely to get a guy who's going to hang around past his rookie deal. Fifth, sixth, and seventh round, rounds 5 through 7, 5, 6, and 7, you are almost equally likely to get a guy out of the undrafted guys available as you are to get a guy who's going to stick around from the 5th, 6th, or 7th round. It's just the way it is. There's a ton of luck involved. Even the guys, like I said, like Ozzie Newsome, Bill Polian, Dave Gettleman did a great job with the Carolina Panthers. Even a guy like Bill Belichick, who hasn't shown that he's a great drafter, but he's great at building football teams. Even these guys, they don't have a huge success rate at drafting. There's just so much unknown involved. So even those guys, what they're looking to do, always, this is always the best executives, whether you go back to the 80s with Bill Walsh, or the Steelers in the 70s, or the Dolphins back in the 70s, or the Cowboys back in the 60s and 70s, or the modern teams, no matter who it is that's building a football team, whether the Seahawks with John Schneider, or no matter who it is, these guys always have one thing in common. They just want to make the team better. You can get a little too cute in the NFL draft when that time comes around. Yes, you would love to draft position of need, but if it's just not there, it's not there. Yes, you would love to get a great value. You'd rather not pick a guy 15 spots too soon, but if you like a guy and he's not going to be there 15 spots later, or you're not sure that he's going to be there 15 spots later, you go ahead and get him. At the end of the day, no matter what, you try to watch the value, you try to watch the needs, but at the end of the day, you're just trying to get guys who can play, who want to play, they're tough enough to play, they make your football team better. That's really the idea behind the draft. So yes, we're going to watch the needs, yes, we're going to watch the value, but the idea really specifically is to just try to make the football team better. Let's talk about the Chiefs specifically. Here is my opinion of what their top 7 needs are. In reality, the Chiefs don't have a lot of glaring needs, and by that I mean this. If there was no draft, if the Chiefs had no draft picks, and they had to enter the season today with the players they've already got, plus maybe a couple of free agent signings to kind of fill in a couple of gaps, they wouldn't be devastatingly hurt. They've already basically tried to fill as many of their holes as they can. So they basically can draft anybody. They've got a couple of things that I would consider true needs that they would like to address in the draft, but they are not these glaring obvious holes, which, by the way, I'll say this before I get to the needs. If you are entering the draft and you do still have some major glaring holes on your team, one of two things is happening. Either you haven't done your job in free agency or in building the team up over the past 2 or 3 years, or you already know that you're just not going to be very good this year because you have so many holes. So anytime you enter the draft and you have a lot of holes and a lot of glaring needs, one of two things is happening. Either you're not very good at your job, or you know that you are already in a rebuild and you're trying to push back up towards that. Now, Kansas City Chiefs, I don't think I'm creating a new thing here. Edge rusher, I think, would be at the top of most Chiefs fans' needs list. Ironically enough, they already let a couple of these guys go with Dee Ford and Justin Houston. Those contract numbers were just too big. Couldn't justify keeping those guys around at those high cap numbers, generally speaking. I know some of you wanted to keep Dee Ford. Totally understand that. Brett Veach didn't do that. I applaud Brett Veach for it. We won't try to go any farther into that. They do have a needed edge rusher. Now, the guys that they brought in free agency are guys who are big bodies, guys who are pretty stout against the run, guys who in some cases, like Okafor, can produce some pressure against the quarterback, but they currently have nobody on the edge who's a quick twitch edge rusher. So I think that's the number one need for the Kansas City Chiefs. Number two, I think you've got cornerback. I don't think it's any secret. You've got guys there at cornerback who I think can fill the starter positions. It's not a dire need. It's not something that's just glaringly obvious that you're weak in, but it is a position that for the past few seasons has been a struggle for the Kansas City Chiefs to try to find cornerbacks that they're very comfortable with, who they think can fill that spot for the next 3 or 4 seasons and not have to worry about injuries, not have to worry about the guy just not playing very well. I think cornerback would be their second need spot. After that, edge and cornerback, I really think are the two spots that are just glaringly, we could use an upgrade. Not glaringly need spots, but man, we could use an upgrade here, somebody to just kind of add to it. I know some of you like linebacker as a need spot, and you're thinking, man, we don't really like Wilson, we don't really like Hitchens, we don't really like any of the guys that we have there. They already have, if you're the Chiefs, you already have money invested in the linebacker spot. You brought in Attaochu Achiuwa, you spent a lot of money on Anthony Hitchens, you've already got some draft picks that you've put into those linebacker spots over the past couple of seasons. So I don't think the Chiefs are going to go heavy at linebacker early in the draft, and that's why I didn't put it as a need spot, because the Chiefs have already over the past 2 or 3 off seasons tried to address that linebacker spot. I think they're going to wait to see for another season how that linebacker spot plays out. We'll see how that works out. Some of you may want to draft linebacker much higher, put it as a higher need. Totally understand that. Number 3 and 4 go together. All I'm looking to do here, and this is true whether Tyreek Hill comes back next season or not, all I'm trying to do is, if I'm the Chiefs, I want to get Patrick Mahomes more weapons to play with. I just want to get him more tools to work with. I just want to get him more stuff in the toolbox that he can use to try to combat offenses. You've seen a lot of the wide receivers that the Chiefs have. They let several of them go this offseason. Maybe they'll bring a couple of them back, but they haven't done that yet. The Chiefs wide receivers, once you get past Kelsey, once you get past the running backs, once you get past Watkins, and once you get past, of course, Tyreek Hill, once you get past those guys, you have a lot of guys who just don't seem to be contributing a lot. And so, therefore, the Chiefs, I think, could use another weapon or two, whether it's a slot receiver, which I'd love to see them get, or a tight end, too, just somebody to be on the opposite side of Kelsey from time to time, just to present something different to NFL defenses. So, well, the Chiefs don't like to use a whole lot of 2 tight end sets. That's true. But if you had a tight end here who could catch the football, I don't care if he blocks or not, if he's that second tight end, just somebody who can catch the ball opposite Kelsey, a big tight end who could really go up against a lot of those nickel packages that you see in the NFL. I think that would do a lot for the Kansas City Chiefs. Anyway, the point is just getting Patrick Mahomes more weapons to work with, I think would really open up the offense as they've done already. What you have seen already from Tyreek Hill, a lot of teams do this. The New England Patriots did this in the AFC title game. They really bracketed Hill. They were really able to shut him out for most of the first half and even parts of the second half. They were really able to give the Kansas City Chiefs a lot of struggles there. So I think right here, what you're trying to do with 3 and 4 of those needs is just get Patrick Mahomes more weapons. The interior of the offensive line. This is not a huge need spot, but if you watch the other offensive line video that we put out, you can see that for the next season or two, when you get to that left guard spot, you're a little weak there. When you get to the center spot, you have at least a question mark at center. Once you get past this top 6 offensive linemen that the Chiefs have right now at the moment, the depth is just gone. There's nobody there at all who has a lot of starts or any starts. There's nobody there who even got on the field last season. Some of the guys that they had, they already let go, like Jordan Devey and Mitch Morse and guys like that. Maybe even Jeff Allen, who they may or may not bring back. Interior offensive line, for me, at least moving forward, you would love to invest a couple of draft picks in just to try to start planting some seeds, get some guys in there who you can develop, and hopefully start to fill some starter spots, maybe not in 2019, but in 2020 or even 2021. This is just smart, looking ahead kind of stuff, building your depth, and hopefully investing in future seasons when you may need to have some more offensive linemen. I think that's a great spot to do that in right there. Linebacker, of course, I already mentioned that. Some of you are going to laugh at quarterback 3 here at number 7. Keep this in mind. Your backup quarterback right now is Chad Henne. Hopefully he doesn't see the field. Hopefully he never sees the field. But right now, even if he doesn't see the field, he's occupying $4.1 million of cap space. That's not a huge amount. And if you know that Chad Henne is going to step in and play well, then you're willing to pay that $4 million to have him be your backup quarterback. But the problem is, if he's not going to play at all, then you have $4 million of cap space locked up. If he does hit the field, do you even feel good about him playing well? We haven't seen Chad Henne in a while in any significant game action. Do you actually even feel like he can come in and really do your team a solid as the backup quarterback? We saw them bring in E.J. Manuel as the quarterback, QB3. So what I would like to see is E.J. Manuel move up to QB3, just let Chad Henne go. You could save probably $2 million in cap space this offseason. You'd have $4 million clear off the books for next offseason. What that would also do, though, I'd love to have a guy come in, not as an early draft pick, but a very late draft pick, somebody that you can train, somebody who's young, somebody who's not afraid, somebody who's a bit of a gunslinger, somebody who would like to come in like Patrick Mahomes. Not ever be what Patrick Mahomes is, of course, but just somebody who could be there learning under Andy Reid, learning under Eric Bieniemy, learning what these guys do, and train them to be your own player. Somebody who's a bit of a gunslinger come in, and E.J. Manuel will be there. He's the guy already who's going to be the cheap guy who has that experience. I don't really see any need to have Chad Henne there. So that would be what my seventh need would be right there. Okay, move over here. I've got this separated in two categories. Right here you have the Chiefs' top 4 draft picks. So number 1, first round, 29 overall, second round. These are the top 4. There's a huge break. I mentioned this. Once you get out of the top 3 rounds, once you get past roughly the top 100 players in the draft, there is a massive fall-off statistically in the odds of you getting a starter. So when you come to these 4 draft picks here, 5, 6, 6, and 7, there is not a huge difference of what you can do. What you're really looking to do here is just kind of stockpile depth, stockpile special teamers, stockpile people who have a lot of heart and a lot of energy and who really want to come with a lot of desperation and play right there. So we'll get to that in a minute. Start off right here. This will be your most important draft pick, of course. First round, number 29 overall. It's a bit of an awkward position right here. It's well documented. The value at number 29 is not great because you're in the first round. A lot of the good talent, the easy to spot talent, if you will, has already been gone after those top 15 or 20 picks. So by the time you get to 29, you're kind of picking from leftovers. There are still good players to be had there, but maybe the value's not the greatest. So if you could trade down and grab an extra 3rd round pick or an extra 4th round pick, that's okay. I'm not interested in trading down just for a 6th round draft pick. I don't think there's any value in that. But if you do stay right there, the first thing I'm looking for is an edge rusher. There are really good edge rushers in this draft. I don't think any of them are going to be around by number 29. If there's not an edge rusher, and I don't think there is going to be one, if an edge rusher drops, I almost don't care who it is. If it's one of those top guys that looks like they're a true quick twitch edge rusher, I don't need another big body to put at defensive end, somebody who's stout against the run and kind of sort of puts pressure on quarterbacks from time to time. I already have several guys like that if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs. What I do want is a quick twitch edge rusher. There are a few. I don't think they're going to be available, but if there is one that falls to me at 29, then I'm definitely going to grab him right there. That's my first look. If I can't get an edge rusher here at 29, I'm probably not going to get one in the rest of the draft because edge rushing, that true edge rushing quick twitch talent off the edge is so sought after in the NFL. Most of it goes in the first round. It's hard to find that particular asset later on in the draft. It can be found at times, but that's very unusual. So if I don't address edge rusher right here, I'm probably not going to worry about it for the rest of the draft. It's just not going to be there. If I can't get an edge rusher at 29, then I'm going to look at cornerback. There are cornerbacks here that I would love to have at this spot. The problem with the cornerback position, this is pretty much all the cornerbacks in this draft, even at the top. There is no cornerback available right now who you can just put in and say, you know what, I know this guy is going to fill out a starting spot. Every one of them has a flaw of some kind. You have some of the cornerbacks like Greedy Williams, who you know they can cover and cover very well. But up against the run, they're really not even interested. They're very poor against the run. They're very poor in tackling.
You can't put them in the box. At times, they're not even very physical at all, so you know they can cover. Then you have other guys, like the kid from Temple, I can't remember the name right off the top. You have guys who can cover in man, press man, but not in zone. So there's no cornerback right now, here or elsewhere, that I really feel great about just locking in that spot. But if there's a guy, and I'll trust Andy Reid and Brett Veach for this, if there's a guy right here at cornerback that I like, and he fits what I do at the defensive spot, and I like him, then I'm going to be drafting him at that spot right there. If there's not a guy, if the guys at cornerback have already been picked through at, say, 20 through 25, and I'm left with somebody here that I don't like, I'm not going to grab a cornerback just for the heck of it. I'm going to move over, and I'm going to start looking at weapons right here. If my edge rushers and my cornerbacks are gone, more than likely I'm going to have some kind of a slot receiver like a Deebo Samuel. I love Deebo Samuel. I love Brown from Mississippi. I love Brown from Oklahoma. I think those guys maybe would be a better value at the top of the second round. Having said that, if these guys are available, or a tight end too that I can get, if these guys are available, if I can't get the edge, if I can't get the cornerback, I'm going to be looking at slot or tight end too. There are not many tight ends in this draft, I don't think. You have about the top 3 tight ends, top 4 tight ends in this draft who seem like they can really contribute, really make a difference. After that, there is a massive fall off in tight ends. So if I can't get a tight end right here at this spot, I'm probably not going to worry about that for the rest of the draft either. I just don't see the value there until you start getting around these 5, 6, 7 rounds as well. So if this is the most important pick, number 1, 29, I'm going to start with the edge rusher. If I can't get the edge rusher, I'm going to look at the cornerback, see if any of the cornerbacks are still there that I like. If not, then I'll go after one of the slot receivers, or maybe even one of the tight ends that actually happens to fall to me at that spot. Moving on, excuse me there. Moving on to the second round. You are deep into the second round with both of your second round draft picks. Again, it's kind of an awkward spot. Now, I know for a lot of you, I have guard here at both of these spots. I don't actually think the Chiefs are going to pick guard at both spots. Of course, they might not pick guard at either spot. If that's what I was drafting, that's what I would be looking at. I think there's good value. Remember I said that you get too cute with value, but if I stay right here at these 2 spots, 61 and 63, I think there's very good value at the interior offensive lineman spot right here. It's not a huge need for me. I know for some of you it's not a need at all, but when I look at the interior of the offensive line, I think there are some needs there that need to be addressed, either this offseason or definitely by next offseason. I think there are some needs there. I'm going to be looking at guard right here in these 2 spots. Guard / center, maybe even guard tackle, depending on what I need here, but I think the value is there. I don't like the corners and the wide receivers that I think will be available right here. You never know. You never know who's going to be available at these spots. But if I stay at 61 and 63, I really don't like the corners and the wide receivers that are left for me here. I think the good corners and the good wide receivers that truly have value, I think they're all going to be taken somewhere in the top 50. So when you look right here, I have trade up for cornerback or trade up for wide receiver. I'm not a huge guy who likes to trade up a lot. I know a lot of you like to trade down, and that's the trendy thing to do. I'm only interested in trading down if I get a lot of picks. If I get a 3rd rounder and a 5th, I would love to trade down. If I can pick up a 3 and a 6, I'm interested in trading down. I'm not going to just trade down for a 5th or 6th rounder. There is no value in that, hardly at all. I will be glad to trade down from these spots if I can get something of significance, like a 3 and a 5, or maybe even a 4 by itself. The cornerback spot right here, I'm willing to trade up, but I don't want to trade up a lot. Okay, if I can trade up 5 or 10 spots, maybe 12 spots, and I don't have to give up any of these top picks, I can just give up something here. I'm willing to give up the 2nd rounder and maybe the 5th rounder or a couple of 6s. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to move up, but I'm not going to give up a lot for that. Okay, so we've seen Brett Veach move up. I wouldn't surprise me if he moves up again. I just don't like the value right here at 61 and 63 on corners and wide receivers. If there's a guy I want who's about 10 spots away, 12 spots away, it's not going to cost me an arm and a leg to move up in the draft, then I'm willing to do that as well. Number 3 right here, round 3, number 92. I like the cornerbacks available right there. I don't think 30 spots higher is a good spot for a cornerback, but once you get right here, I think it's a decent spot to start looking again at corners, slot, and running backs as well for that right there. So that's a decent spot where at least I know I have a chance at trying to give somebody who may not be a starter for me in the future, but at least they can add some depth for me in the future at any of these three spots. When you move here, I don't mean to be a smart aleck when I say this, it almost doesn't matter what you draft right here. Statistically, your chances of getting a guy who plays here are so low. What you're looking for here, you're looking for special teamers, you're looking for a guy who has a high motor, you're looking for a guy who has a lot of energy, you're looking for a guy who's maybe a project that you think has some really raw edges, that maybe if you train him up well, he can maybe someday be a starter for you. This is what you're looking for here in the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds. I think linebacker, I think there's still some linebackers at these spots here. I don't think linebacker is very strong at the 2nd and 3rd rounds, but I think once you get in the 5th and 6th rounds, there's some depth there at linebacker this year. You could go in and get some guys there. At that point, I might be looking for that 3rd quarterback as well. Again, that would save me about $4 million next offseason with Chad Henne, maybe $2 million this offseason in cap space as well. All right, so that's what I've got listed. Again, there's a million different directions the Chiefs could go. I know all of you who are watching this are going to have different directions that you want to go. If enough of you chime in, maybe you can change my mind about some of this, but this is just general directions that we're looking at going in. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Have a great one. Goodbye.